Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Monday night, we are back in action. I am your host, as always, Timuchin, here in a nice, cool, breezy Chicago. It's not too shabby. Even I can't complain. This is not too bad. I'll take it. And with us is the usual duo. Gally's with us. Gally, what's happening?
Hanging in there. It's Monday.
It is Monday. It feels like a Monday, especially after the weekend. Definitely felt like a Monday. And speaking of Monday, guy who feels like Monday all the time, Bickler's with us. Bickler, what's happening?
I wouldn't know what the weather's like because I'm stuck in the goddamn office all week because I work for corporate America.
Fun facts, yes. While things are going this great and you guys are in the chipper mood already, let's just double up and start with our favorite segment, the trivia. Obviously, I'm really scrambling for questions at this point. We've had way too many episodes. We need BJ to come back ASAP. But next game up is what, Bickler?
I don't even know. International break.
And then Everton it is. So hopefully you guys crammed some Merseyside derby questions.
Divock Origi.
Hopefully you guys will get this right. Actually, that's a fun fact in there that we will mention. But top goal scorer, it could be either team for the derby.
Jeez.
Bickler, we will start with you. Top goal scorer at all time in the derby. Could be either.
Rushy? I go Rushy. I don't know.
Okay. Gally?
I was going to go with Ian Rush, assuming you were going to go with Steven Gerrard. I will.
You jerk.
I will. I'm just going to guess a different name. And I think it's a terrible one, but I'm going to say Robbie Fowler.
Robbie Fowler, actually, that's shocking. It's not a bad guess. In terms of as far as
it is a bad guess.
It is a bad guess, though. In terms of numbers, it is a bad guess. Overall, I'd be like, "Oh, that's not a bad shout." But he has 6. Ferguson for Everton, Rush for Liverpool, says Alan. Rush is correct with 25 goals overall. Rush is correct. Bickler gets one. Mark your calendars. I think we went all the way to
one really good guy.
I know about that. One for Bickler. Let's go with that one. Actually, Dixie Dean has 19 goals in the derby, and that's the person for Everton leading. Who did he say? Ferguson. Not towards the top, that's for sure. I'm not scrolling all the way over here. Okay, so off the current squad, who is the highest? Would you guys say?
It's Mo. I'd assume it's Mo.
It is Mo with 5, which I thought is really low. Like, I thought it would be a lot more for Mo. How many does Divock have?
All comps or in the Premier League?
In the derby, in the Merseyside derby. All comps, I think this is basically considering every game.
I think it was at least 4, if not 5.
Bickler?
I didn't think it was 5. I didn't think it was as many as 5.
Okay, well, you're going the wrong way. Then let me cut you short.
Okay. All right. I didn't. It was higher. All right.
It is 6.
I know how many Joe scored.
I thought it was shocking that he has. I thought first I was shocked that Mo only had 5, to be honest with you. And then Divock having more than Mo seems really odd as well. Obviously, he had more of those games because Mo, where did he go now? I was just pulling up the numbers from like 2017 until now. So we're looking at like a 6-year sample there. Divock 2014 to 22. So I'm assuming it's more games played. But yeah, Divock has 6 of them. And honestly, all 6 are in the league. I thought I could have sworn I remembered cup game, but maybe that was not a cup game.
You know what it is? I know what you're talking about. It was a midweek matchup during like when we went into cups and play, but we were playing a Tuesday makeup game and Divock scored like 2.
Yes.
game.
I just remember the one that he brought up from the air and then just like lobbed it like a great.
It was a 2 week. I just remember it was a midweek match, and I remember going to watch it, and Divock scored 2, and I remember like the group we were watching with, we were just like clowning because I think that's actually before the double doink. Like that we haven't even gotten to that level. I think that one comes the following season, I think.
You tested my memory limits with that game alone. Meanwhile, Bickler is like, what did I have for lunch?
I just like awkwardly over here pretending to know what you guys are talking about. Yeah. I ate a whole pizza that week. I remember that.
You're more like Divock. Like,
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Anyone who's seen that recent picture of Divock in the team photo for Forest, you know how much he was enjoying Milan. Because this guy has got a belly on him that makes
looking
Santa
more and more like
jealous.
Benteke every day.
Yeah, he literally would be making Santa jealous on December 15th. Like I'm telling you right now, this thing is pot belly, and the only thing it's missing is like somebody to rub it and be like, she's gonna be a soccer player.
You can't do pasta 3 times a day unless you're born over there. You just can't.
You would think somebody would Photoshop that, or Divock would be a bit more self-aware and kind of like hold that in a little bit as they're snapping the picture.
Divock.
But yeah,
Divock never cared in his entire life about anything.
But yeah, I saw that photo. I was like, yes, slightly out of shape. Okay, well, let's get to us. Let's get to the weekend. James says, I think he just takes a bad photo. He looked fit when he came. I think that's when he was, after the photo came in. That's when he was, I think, sucking it in as he was coming out to the
Just
gate.
so we're clear, my ex-wife never took a bad photo either, and she was always fit as well. But let me tell you, same situation. There's no sucking it in. You either have a belly or you don't. And if you do, it's not going to work for you. Like this whole idea, like he looked fit when he came on the pitch. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Love James. Appreciate the comments. Please keep the comments coming in. But man, come on. That is some defending some logic there. If that were
well, that's the ex-wife come into play. That's what I'm waiting for.
Just let him go, Tim. Don't worry about it.
He's working. He's working. Kneel that back in there.
He's working through some stuff right now. Okay, let's let him go.
It's the truth. No, it's one of those things. It's like everyone says, like, oh, blah blah blah. I take a bad photo. It's a bad angle. I wasn't turned sideways. It's like, no. If somebody catches you with a camera and you look like you're probably overweight or you're a little portly, the odds are you are, right? Like that's how this works. Like the camera doesn't.
I don't know. This camera
pounds.
mine automatically puts like 10, 15 pounds. I feel like, right, Bickler? At the chin.
I feel like I feel very targeted. Like we're talking about my vacation photos right now. I just came back.
Hey, Southernmost Point is a pretty cool spot.
That or not, that's true.
But those camera angles, damn. Okay, well, let's get to the game over here. Because if we dive into more ex-wife jokes, first of all, I don't have any. So let's dive into the game and over the weekend over here.
Makes one
loser.
Sorry. Sorry, guys. Okay. 2 points lost, 1 point gained, Bickler.
Man.
By the way,
I'm always
Ellen, you've been around long enough to know that the answer to which of you has a six-pack is obviously none of the above. Okay, Gally over here I think is with like notarized 12-year-old body over here, which does not include a six-pack. Mine has a 6-layer gut or something at this point. I don't know if that's considered a six-pack. And yeah, we got the double chins rolling over here too. Bickler is probably the closest in terms of being fit, which says a lot, right?
I mean, it's actually a requirement to be on the show that you're outside the normal BMI range. So, like, I mean, like, trust me, nobody is doing a six-pack anything except beer on the show.
Yes, Brian says maybe a 12-pack. But let's go back to the game. 2 points gained, 1 point lost.
I mean, it just feels like 2 points lost to me just because of the situation, like, you know, being a crossbar away from being up 3-1. I think it feels like 2 points lost. But that being said, I thought we did enough. Like, I thought we were very average, and I feel like we didn't make tactical adjustments, and we had enough issues between the back line of the midfield and the front line of the midfield that, like, a draw was inevitable against a side like Brighton who can hang in, and I felt played very well and did so with a lot of young pieces.
Yeah, I think it's the lead that we lost and goes back to that, because I agree that if that goal goes in instead of the bar, if it goes in, it's a 3-1, Gally. That game had a feeling of it would end like 5-2 or 5-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think the Gravenberch miss was really big, and we'll talk about it and how important it was. 2 points gained, 2 points lost, 1 point gained. I struggle with the only part of it is I don't know that we played that well that we should have felt like we could go on the road to a really good footballing side and win. We were down some players. I know that we were short-staffed, short-manned on our first 11. Especially missing Jones, Jota, and Gakpo. That's 3 of our top 11s at any given Sunday that could be in our starting 11. My bigger issue was our complacency with the lead. And I didn't think we played that well outside of about 15, 20 minutes in the first half. And I would have liked to have seen us create more clear-cut opportunities in the second half. I can really only think of 2. The Gravenberch one, and, of course, the one that Diaz had in and kind of shot wide of the post and didn't put it on frame. Other than that, we didn't really create as much as I would have liked. So I thought at the end of the day, we were kind of lucky to get a point, because once they leveled it, they had 3 more chances to win it that were actually gilt-edged chances, and it was almost like we weren't learning from our own mistakes. That was what was disappointing.
I mean, the game is a momentum game overall, because I think, that's why that post is so important and critical, because if that goes in, the entire game changes. And yeah, once they tied it up, I think it was more of a, okay, let's now hang on to a points is more than anything else. And I think that was like the overall kind of like the feeling, because I think it felt like, yeah, they have the upper hand now, and they were making substitutions which were making it like even more difficult. And Bickler, are you being attacked over there? Do we need to call animal services?
I've got a neighbor moving out, and she barks at anything that moves on the porch. So I share a porch with them. So
let's talk about this, because James says Harvey Elliott starting was a mistake. So we talked a lot about this in terms of the starting 11, and especially the midfield, because that was going to be the tricky one, right? Because we knew, you had no other options for the front. That kind of filled itself, and probably the same thing for like the back 4 for the most part. So midfield was the biggest question, Bickler. What did you think of the Harvey thing? What does it say in the grand scheme of Endo, especially, I think? Because if Endo was going to get a start, if Klopp and the gang felt like he could get a start in the Premier League, this seemed to be the game. He was taken out early, so he had only played 45 minutes midweek, so he didn't have the tired legs. And obviously we were missing Jones, but he elected to go with Elliott over Endo and then pushing Mac up. Do you like it, hate it, and why do you think we went with that?
I hate it, and it's no fault of Harvey, who I thought actually played fairly well. I think that's the thing that bums me out is everyone's like, why Harvey this, Harvey that. I actually thought he played pretty well. But like, dude, if you're gonna go out and buy a vetted 6 out of the Bundesliga, who's considered widely regarded one of the most consistent and experienced 6s in the Bundesliga, to be a key rotational piece, and you are down Jota, Gakpo, and Jones, wouldn't this be your spot? It makes no sense to me. And this goes back to the problem I've had for years with Jurgen Klopp, is the fact that, like, if we're going to have this, you either play the system that fits your best 11 that you want to play, or you play your best 11 for the system. And he does neither of those. And it just really bothers me. And like, I really hope that this isn't a situation where we're once again seeing a need that wasn't addressed in the transfer market, and the brass basically pushes a player onto the manager because they're saying you have to fill this slot. Like, we have to have some sort of contingency plan. I don't think that's the case with Endo, or I don't think we would have seen the amount of minutes we've already seen from him.
Yeah.
But like it just, maybe I got PTSD from seeing like Arthur and Davies just get ghosted. But it felt like we're starting to shove Endo onto Exile Island with the ghost of those 2 players. And I don't like that. It doesn't make me feel good. I don't understand. I really thought that we lost the match before it even started, because like I felt like this was not set up to put the players that we have in the best position versus a good Brighton team.
James says, agreed, Harvey wasn't awful, but the best of a bad bunch. Because, Soboslai probably had his poorest game since he's joined as well. I mean, to be fair, the bar is pretty high because he's done well. And after the game, the club did said Endo was not 100%.
How can that be possible if he was a planned substitution the match before?
And that's the thing, is that him protecting Endo a little bit, Gally, and not saying, well, we don't fully trust him yet? Or is that like an honest answer?
I mean, look, if the manager says if he played on Thursday night and he gets subbed off at 45 minutes, you have to imagine he's subbed off at 45 minutes with the intention of giving him a start on the weekend. So maybe something comes up. Maybe he feels something in training. Maybe something happens during those couple training sessions, Friday or Saturday in the recovery. And maybe he tells the manager, I don't know that I can go. And if I do go, I can't guarantee I can give you the full run. And the manager says, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to go with Harvey from the start. It makes more sense why we don't see Endo if there was something physically that stopped him, because Endo makes a ton of sense when you're going defensive and you're bringing in Kanate and Gomez to try to see out a 2-1 win, even a 2-2 draw. It would have made sense to bring Endo on at that point. So maybe there really was something going on with Endo there. But I'm with Paul. Endo's got to start that match if he is fit enough to be able to, or you don't buy him. Because now you start to ask some questions, because this was the match.
But do you believe that he was injured, or do you think he didn't start as part of not having confidence in him?
No, I think he probably was injured if Klopp says he was injured. I genuinely do. I don't think he says things like that to protect players, and I don't think he ever uses injury as a situation, because that's excuse making. And as much as Klopp uses the media to do his bidding, I don't know that he does it that way. The substitution on 45 minutes is either he never plays again and Klopp was done with him in the Union match, or it was a 45-minute automatic substitution with the weekend as part of the plan. So
where are you at with that,
the fitness makes me think that's probably legit.
I think he came out and said all the halftime substitutions were planned substitutions.
Right.
No, I'm not talking about the Union game. I'm talking about the Brighton game. I'm not talking about the Union game. In terms of like him not starting, do you agree or believe that he wasn't 100%? That's why we didn't risk it? Or that's
I don't believe
way
that.
Of avoiding saying I don't have full faith in him yet.
I don't believe that. I think he overthought it. I think he saw an opportunity and rolled the dice with Harvey. And I don't get it.
So let's get to that substitution then. Harvey getting pulled from that midfield. And that's what we thought, when we were talking at halftime, we come back from that 1-0 and, make it 2-1, do the usual Liverpool thing. We were only missing that goal, which hit the post. Otherwise, the 3-1 was going to be there. But we bring Gravenberch, Gally. What do you make of that? Because our guess was more like, hey, Endo will probably be coming in to kind of like shore it up and play a bit safer, to protect the lead first, and then we can always create with like the trio we have up top.
Well, I think what we're finding out is that Klopp is absolutely enamored with the skill sets that Gravenberch has, and he can do so many things in his midfield. And I think we've always said he loves himself a Swiss Army knife that can do a little bit of everything, and I think Gravenberch offers him that, and he can move forward and goes really, really well. And I think we needed a little bit of strength and power in the midfield, especially with Szoboszlai not being on the ball as much as he was and pressing as high. I disagree with Brian, and what I'll say to that is I won't be shocked at all if Endo starts coming out and starts the derby against Everton. A slow team, you don't have to worry. A team you want a little defensive prowess if they come on the counter. And McAllister will be coming back from South American training. So it would make perfect sense to actually slot him in. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's his first start. But I think Gravenberch is the type of player Klopp has been dying to get his hands on. And I think without Curtis Jones, he was needed probably from the start because he offers a lot of the same things, kind of that power moving forward, late runs into the box, and he presses really well. And similar to Curtis Jones, Gravenberch has shown a propensity to not lose the ball in tough spots. And if anything, I was nervous about Elliott playing on the left. And I did think that at times he got exposed a little bit. being in positions he just wasn't used to being in.
The issue was, I can't pull it back up now. There's been a lot of comments, but I know somebody mentioned in the comments that the press was not there. And I think, Bickler, we are all in agreement that in this game, more than likely, if available, Gakpo would be the one starting up top, because it just felt like Nunez was totally lost in this game, because we didn't do our regular pressing because of how Brighton plays. So
let me just break it down for you. If there is a healthy Gakpo, he starts every time over Nunez. Every
time, regardless of the game.
But he
every fucking time.
But he
every
didn't.
time.
He does for you, but he doesn't for Klopp, because he didn't 3 of the last 5 starts in the league. He hadn't.
Well, I can tell you off the back of that Nunez performance, he will. Because
I'm with you. I'm just saying, like, that hasn't been the case this season.
Right.
He hasn't.
And I said at the beginning, if Gakpo is ever injured, you will find out why we don't see Nunez regularly starting. Because what Nunez doesn't do is he doesn't hold shape, he doesn't hold position, he doesn't press, he doesn't do all those things that you need to do in this system, which for me is goes back to changing the system. You have 2 players in McAllister and Gravenberch who are supremely talented, who can play holding midfield as a double pivot if you need them to. That's what their experience has been. It's never been as a sole 6 anchor. It's never been in that formation. It's never been as a true 6. It's been as a double pivot. And we have 2 players that can do it. And then you're now asking a player like Nunez to play in a way that he's not ever been used. He doesn't regularly drop deep into the mids. And that's what you need in the system. You need a player that adds to your midfield 3 in and out of possession. And I just think it's similar to when you try to play Jota centrally. You have 2 players that are used to playing off the shoulder striker. And I was a little bit encouraged at the beginning of this game, because if you looked at them out of possession, Liverpool was playing 2 up top. But when we got back into possession, it went to a standard 3. So we never really got what I thought would get the best out of Nunez. And he's just not disciplined enough. And he's not, I don't know that, the other thing about Nunez is I don't know if he can give you 90. I don't. To me, he looked like a player that was gassed at 60.
Because of how he plays, right? He just wants to go 100 miles an hour, and it's not a guy who can kind of regulate and pick and choose his moments as well. I mean, that could be age and experience and stuff like that. But
which is why a 25-minute hurricane off the bench with the chaos works.
Makes sense.
And I think here's the thing with Nunez. I mean, when you watch him, and I think that's why it depends on the game we're playing. I don't know if I say Gakpo every single time, because we were talking with the morning show with Kazi that, he does a lot of chasing, Gally, but that's not the same as pressing. And I think against a team like Brighton, who almost wants you to chase, and that's why they do that, passing in the back, because they want you to chase a little bit so they can kind of play around you and then catch you shorthanded in the back. This is a game I thought that he would not be starting if Gakpo or Jota was available.
Definitely Gakpo. I mean, you're playing a topside team that's going to put any form of possession play against you. I think Gakpo is going to start, to Paul's point, all day long. It's why we've seen so far this year, even when we played Newcastle earlier, it's one of the matches that Nunez didn't start from the rip, because I think we knew we'd be playing a footballing team that was going to try to be in possession at times, and we were going to have to press high up the pitch and create and force to cause mistakes. And Gakpo gave us a better formation and tactics from it. I agree with you guys that he was really poor in his overall play. And I think the chasing versus pressing is a good call, because I think you see that with him. When he's connected to his teammates and actually pressing, his speed and his power helps, because he puts so much pressure on both the keeper and the central defenders. They make mistakes, and we've seen it this year lead to 2 or 3 goals. When he's just running around like a chicken with his head cut off, he just pulls himself out of position, which then allows a team like Brighton to hit you with created open space. And I think that's what we saw at times on Sunday. And then on top of it, he gets frustrated. And that's when you see what Kazi kept talking about. You almost see, whether it's quitting, whether it's pouting, whether it's just kind of just jogging. There were times where he looked like he was disinterested, because I just feel like he wasn't involved in the play at all. And I think when you lose a guy like him, he's all about his energy. And that's not a compliment to him. That's a detriment to his game. He's got to improve it.
I mean, I felt like as you watch him, Bickler, I felt it was more frustration and not knowing what to do. He just looked lost because I'm assuming this was something that was talked about that we do not want to chase this game. And, normally, especially when we're home, like those games where he's going and maybe he's starting the press with Curtis Jones or whoever is coming from the midfield, that works, right? He's going full speed to the goalie and stuff like that, but not against a team like Brighton. And it almost felt like he was thinking out there, and that's obviously like slows things down. So sometimes you would see more press, but he was not pressing. So now the goalie is wide open and stuff like that. It just felt like, I don't want to say it was like laziness or, like he did look disinterested at times, but to me, that was out of frustration and just being lost overall.
Yeah, and it's like, what's the difference between Gakpo and Nunes being lost, though? I mean, they've been at the club they've been at the club both for a while. They're both 24 years old. But if you look at these two players, like for me, like they're two players that are 24 years old at the same club at totally different stages of the career. You look at Gakpo, he came up in a system. He came up in a club that was consistent and is like known as one of the best developmental clubs in all of Europe in Ajax, all the way through the youth ranks, was there for years, came up. You look at Nunes, he was kind of discovered late. He bounced over from South America, came up through the second division in Spain, and like really kind of like his career really skyrocketed in the last like 18 to 24 months. Whereas if you look at Gakpo, he's been on a slow ascendancy his entire career. And I think that you're looking at two 24-year-olds who are at vastly different stages of the growth. And I think that like Darwin still has a super, super high ceiling, but he's still super raw. And I think not only like we talk about it physically, but I think mentally too. Like I think that like Gakpo's maturity is like he's in a different spot. I think like Gakpo is much more seasoned and much more veteran. Maybe he'll have more game intelligence that Nunes ever has, but I don't think Gakpo will ever have the physical skill set that Nunes would have. So like, I think it's a combination of that. Like it's going to be it's a bigger learning curve for Darwin. I think physically he doesn't have 90 minutes in him. And I think that he's not used to playing that high press, that intensity, like what the system demands out of a player for 90 minutes. I don't think he's used to that. I don't think he's there yet. I think all the metrics tell you he can give you 90 minutes, but I don't think that he's used to that kind of 90 minutes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, James was saying earlier in the notes that bought Nunes for a different system, abandoned it very quickly. I don't even know if we bought him. I mean, I don't think there was a different system. I don't think we bought it for a different system. Gally, it almost feels like, Pep and Klopp looked at it like, oh man, the machine we can get out of this based on the raw talents. But it almost feels like maybe they overestimated the learning curve he would have, and maybe possibly the physical one too. I mean, obviously he's a physical specimen, but being fast and strong and stuff like that are not the same as being able to do that over 90 minutes in that high intensity. But do you think they kind of overestimated perhaps how fast he would learn?
Yeah, you never know how fast a player is going to learn. You don't know how fast a player is going to take to a new country, a new language. But to Kazi's point, it's been over a year. There's no more excuses about betting it. He's here now. He's got his teammates. His family's here. His beautiful girlfriend's in town. His kid lives in town. Like he's got all the things to be successful. Everyone at the club supported him. The fans absolutely support him. I mean, for as many misses as he has, for them to scream his name the way that they do every time he does anything, his teammates absolutely love him. That is clear. They support him. He's got his South American contingency on the pitch with him. So he's got all the tools to be successful. For me, the biggest thing with Gakpo, or the biggest thing with Nunes is I think at times he gets caught in his own head. But I think there is something to James's point about abandoning a system. Klopp made comments about how we have to adapt and evolve, and part of that evolution means changing with the talent we have. You bring in a true out-and-out number 9, and you bring in a true number 10. and then you refuse to use either of them in those roles, in Carvalho and him. We've seen it with other players as well. We've questioned how they would get the best out of Jones at times, how they get the best out of Harvey at times, and they've gone back into fitting them into the 4-3-3. So, and to your point, Timuchin, you've talked all year how you feel like in some ways the Trent inverting in as a right back is actually a detriment to our overall tactics.
Yep, not a fan.
It hurts our setup. I know you're not a fan, and I don't blame you for it, but I think that's also about the players you bought. We brought in we don't have a true number 6, and then we play with Trent taking up space and creating more space for people to vacate in front of our central defenders. Then our defenders make mistakes. But we do an awful lot talking about the strikers and the attack, and we do an awful lot talking about the midfielders. But 4 of the 6 worst players on the pitch on Sunday afternoon were our defenders. Between our center backs, our subs, our fullbacks, like, I really feel like until we start, to Paul's point, to address the defense, I don't know that what's happening further up the pitch isn't going to keep negatively impacting us behind it. And I know defense starts at the front, but our defenders seem like they've just stopped defending. I know you talked about it, Timuchin, in the Discord channel about the tactical maneuver that our defenders do of letting an opponent run in between them and then jumping to the ground. We saw it again, right? It led to 2 of the goals. So I feel like with all the talk about the midfielders and who should play center forward and how the strikers rotate and how the press works, the defenders somehow have just kind of skated on this year between the fullbacks and the center backs.
I think at the same time, though, that's all related. To me, at least, it's all related in terms of like how the defenders perform, what they're exposed to, and stuff like that goes with that midfield. I think the reason I mainly am not big on this whole Trent in the middle experiment is I really feel like he screws up the entire right-hand side. And, we can't build anything out of there. All game, all we could do was kind of pass it back and forth and then play that long diagonal to Mo. And that was our only way coming out of the right. There's no width. So where Trent would be, now you have Matip, who's afraid to take off because he's not going to be able to get back. A couple of times he tries to take off and he's like, oh, shit, I should probably get back. So he can't. You kind of took away those lines, Bickler, that Matip would do, right? Take advantage of that space. I almost feel like, and then you put Trent in there, almost like saying, okay, create. So he's almost like forcing some passes. Whereas in the beginning, it worked like a charm. A, you did not have creative midfielders, so you needed that creativity from the midfield. And B, nobody saw it coming. So it was kind of like, whoa, what's happening? Well, now that everybody's adjusted, it's not the same thing. I thought they made an adjustment going into the second half, and you saw Mac and Trent working a lot better together, and Trent being able to split midfielders and like midfield between the two and suddenly have Mac open with the ball. But it's something that we do not do often. Are you sold on the Trent inverted thing?
No, I'm not. We only do it because we're not playing with the true 6, which is solved if you play Endo. Then you have the best of everything. You have Trent at what he's good at, what he likes to do, and when we're stable in the back 4. You don't put Konate in an island when he's in the worst form of his career at Liverpool. Like I think you solve a lot of issues when you actually play. If you play your system the way it's designed to be played, right? And like, I don't know. I don't get the whole continuation of trying to invert Trent, especially this spot. If you're going to do it, I think you do it situationally. And this is probably the worst team that you could probably do that against in the league outside of some of the classic counterattacking teams. I just don't get it. But I'm not a fan of it. I say stay with 4 at the back. Look, this Liverpool team was at its absolute best, winning titles and winning everything under the sun when it had a spine, right? When you had Alisson, when you had Verge, when you had Fabinho in his prime, and you had Firmino. Like, that was prime, best Liverpool's ever been. And I think you're not far away from it. I think Gakpo is almost in some ways an improved version of what we got prime Bobby in terms of his skill set. I really just think, I know that Endo is a stopgap, right? I know that this is not a long-term solution. You just look at his age and look at his credentials, but I still think he can play an important part of this team week in and week out. I think that we're probably obviously a 2 windows away from looking for a world-class 6. But I think at this point, like, the solution to what's happening right now can't be to invert Trent. it doesn't stabilize anything. I know that you're getting some creativity in the mids, but like you now have the players with McAllister and Gravenberch to do that anyway. So
and I think that's my thing. Like you didn't have that before. Now you have that. You don't necessarily need it. And I think, like when James talks about having, I don't think Trent is there to do double pivot in terms of defending, because that's not his strength. He's there to kind of like create and use his vision and long passing from the middle of the field, as opposed to just coming as diagonals from like the center backs. I just feel like it's not working as well as it did because people have adjusted to it. And we've taken away, I think, where Trent was sometimes even more dangerous coming from the wing. You almost never see Trent in those positions now on the right-hand side where we would whip that ball in. Go ahead, Gally.
Do you think this changes at all? And it's going to be comical for me to say this with a straight face. Do you think this changes at all when and if Thiago is ever fit? Because Thiago could play in a double pivot with a player like Gravenberch or even with a McAllister and offer you a different type of formation, gives you creative play from the back, but still gives you that. He's done it before. I mean, at Bayern, he played in a double pivot. I don't want Thiago back there as the standalone 6 by any means, to Paul's point. But if we don't have the faith in Endo, if Endo isn't going to get the minutes, something has to give. Because to me, it is McAllister started the season as a serviceable player who showed he could play in the 6, who has experience playing in the 6. And as time has gone on, I do think that, one, his mistakes are piling up, which then ends up in his own head. I think we've talked about this before. I think Virgil's arrogance puts people in the midfield at a lot of risk, and I don't think we ever gave Henderson and Genie and Milner and all these guys credit enough, and Thiago for dealing with Virgil's hospital passes, because we've seen a couple of them to Trent and then the one on Sunday to McAllister, where McAllister's getting slated, and he could have done better, but that's on Virgil. And, Allison's so far out of position because he goes to give Virgil a safe pass, so he doesn't make that pass.
He's wearing a different color. Virgil made that pass like it was Matip standing there and not Allison. He's wearing a different color jersey. You would think that's not a pass. I can see that pass. Let's live with the pass. But if Matip is next to you, that's a semi-safe pass still because you have insurance. But you pulled Ali out of the goal. Why would you risk that ball there? It was very unnecessary in the first place. So, yeah, the first ball goes there. Oh, you mentioned Robertson, I know, Gally, before. I think it was like in the morning show. I know it was in the comments earlier. The goal, which when I saw the goal, as somebody who only plays with one leg and the other one is only to like lean on, it just reminded me of a player who only kicks with the left. So when it was on the right, he couldn't kick it away. And then, when that happens, it's like a brain fart, right? You lag, you glitch a little bit because your body is saying, I should kick this, but I don't want to kick with the right. Should I head it? Now it's too freaking late. And I've actually gotten some stupid handballs because of that, because the mind is your brain shorts out a little bit. Van Dijk said after the game that it was Robertson thought Ali called him off, like he was coming to get it. And that's why he pulled out in the last seconds. What do you make of that goal? And I know overall you've been critical of this play, so I figured I'd let you have your say.
Yeah, I thought that it was poor. I mean, that seems like good captain play right there, saying there was a miscommunication in the box, because I don't know where he was.
He probably doesn't want to call the glitch like I did. Yeah,
yeah. That to me, that would have been a pretty aggressive move by the keeper to come out and claim that ball. And, I almost in one way, when if you watch the replay again, Robertson starts to turn his body on it, and McAllister's the one who freezes behind him. McAllister also has a chance to try to clear it, but almost thinks to himself like, oh, Robertson's got this. And then he like swings himself at it and then just gets out of the way. And the next thing you know, it bounces off Lewis Dunk. You made the comment, you've made that mistake and picked up a handball or two in the box in your time. I think a handball in the box in that moment might have been better defending than what Robertson did. At least Ali would have had a chance at stopping the penalty. There was no chance of stopping Lewis Dunk. I mean, they basically gave a guy a free run at the 6-yard box, and just bangs off his thigh and goes in. But for me, it wasn't even that play. I mean, earlier in the second half, he's absolutely falls asleep, and Odinga gets sent in behind him and cuts back, and Ali makes the amazing save down to his left with the strong arm. That should have made it. That should have leveled it at that point. And they do him on that side for the João Pedro miss, and they do him on that side for the big cross late on the last opportunity. He had a really, really tough match for me, and it's a tough match that's kind of been built on a tough 3, 4, 5 matches. I mean, I think he's had a rough time this season, and Paul's been talking about him dropping off. Paul, or Timuchin, you've talked about us criticizing Virgil for maybe having to cover too much of him. Maybe to Kazi's point about McAllister, maybe Robertson is the one who is absolutely gassed out, assed out, and really needs himself a deputy who can give him a few matches off at a time. And I don't know that we have that at the club. So at this point, we're kind of stuck with what we have.
Having seen Costas, I personally don't think so. But I also feel like this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Bickler, because the trans new deal hurts Robbo too, because I feel like he loses a little bit of the support of Van Dijk as well, because Van Dijk is shifted over a little bit more than he would be, because he's a bit more central now than he would be, because Robertson's positioning changes. What do you make of that overall? Because it feels like we've lost, like that's why I'm so against this move. It feels like we lost the strength of this team that everybody raved about and everybody feared was those two backs pushing up and causing chaos. And it's almost like we've kind of like negated both of them at the same time somehow.
Yeah, we haven't seen that from Robbo in almost over a year. And you know, my suspicion is there's some drop off with the legs, but like my suspicion is part of that's Diaz. Like, and that's not, I just think Diaz is a traditional wide player who likes to stay wide. And that really, like, we never made the adjustment. I thought I'd see more inside runs from Robbo. I thought we'd see an underlap from him, and we haven't. Like, we've seen him pull up for support, but we don't really see a ton of interchange. There are times when Diaz will get involved in the mids, but it's usually when possession is changing that we see Robbo hit and overlap, like on a turnover. But we used to see us build possession out with Robbo up forward, and we just don't see that anymore. I don't know if that's legs dropping off. I don't know if that's Diaz wide. I don't know if he's been told not to do that anymore because we don't trust Verge to get back in time anymore. I don't know what it is. I do think I feel like a broken record. I don't think that our back four is good enough anymore. I just don't think it's good enough. And I think it's collectively across the board. I think, when we look at bright spots across this back four, I really think in a weird way, our brightest moments have been Matip, which is crazy. It's absolutely crazy because we had him nailed to move on here shortly. And so I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm allowed to say bad things about Verge anymore. Because I brought it up the other week and got slated. But I just think I know that he's still a good player. I know that he probably starts for a ton of teams in the Prem, right? I just feel like I really felt like this summer it needed to be addressed in the window, and there was other priorities elsewhere, and it didn't happen. But I do think that this is a team that needs fresh legs across the back four, very much in the way the midfield did. So we'll see what happens. But I think Robbo, there's a lot of tread on that tire, man. We have not rotated that player in about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's true too. But I still think ultimately we're not helping our cause. While the form might be down and some of the legs might be gone, I don't think, going back to what you were talking about earlier about having the spine, the person who should be protecting that back four is non-existent for one. And I think I just keep going back to it. I am not a fan. Let the record show I am not a fan of this inverted freaking right back thing. I think in spots, yes. If we get a team at home, if Luton is parking the bus and we need him to come in the middle to help with the creativity and carve him up through the middle instead of the wing because they're closing down the wings because they're playing 5 in the back or something, yes, that's fine. But I think when we do it regularly, people are waiting on it. And I think that was the thing, we talk about these goals and stuff. It's just while Brighton is a great team and they're a joy to watch, I mean, they do play good football, and I do enjoy like watching them in general. I felt like because the goals were so freaking stupid, it felt more of like lost points than a gain point, because it's like it feels self-inflicted overall. But having said all that, let me ask you this, Gally. So you look at the table now, and if I told you beginning of the season, we have a brand new midfield that we have to kind of get sorted out. So many moving pieces. We don't have a starting 11 yet. We don't have a six and stuff. And I said, hey, we're 3 points from the top, only a point from the City, who we all assume still is the main person to catch. Would you take it if I sold you this table before the league started sometime in late summer?
Yes, I would take it all day, every day. I mean, we're in competition, 8 weeks in, second international break. We've dropped points in 3 overall fixtures. At the end of the season, the Chelsea one, getting a point at Chelsea might look like a good point overall by how they play and when you play them. The Tottenham one is what it is. I really still feel like it would have been just such a great hard-earned point had we been able to do it with 9. And then, Brighton is what it was yesterday. I feel like it was a point earned, 2 points dropped, however you want to look at it. The way I look at it is this. Nobody should have thought they were coming in and winning 8 on the spin with this side coming off last season. It took us a long time to incur 18 points last year, and we had a lot less uncertainty coming into last season than we did this season. So for the level of change, the amount of turnover we've had, even the injuries, all the red cards, to be right where we are in fighting distance, touching distance of City, Arsenal, and Tottenham, I think this is the best you could ask for, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe because, we kind of expected the worst. I don't know if that's because of last season or because of so many unknowns going into this season. I mean, looking at this in terms of like strength of schedule as well, with obviously the top of the charts being the harder part, 4th toughest schedule so far in terms of games played. Are you happy overall? Well, Vickler, you're never happy, but are you like above average or happier than you thought you would be in terms of how the standings are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Kazi kind of nailed this morning. The only thing that matters to me is where we are in relation to City, and we're 1 point back. Like, given like our schedule and how like the things that we'd had to do, put together a completely new midfield, bet in a ton of new players, deal with injuries, deal with ridiculous red cards. I think we are the team that played the least amount of minutes, full strength, and it's not even close. It's like more than double the number 2 team. Like to be sitting 1 point off the City right now. Now, granted, they basically turn into a transformer after the first of the year and don't lose the rest of the year. But I mean, for us to be a point behind right now with City, yeah, I'm good. I'll take that. I mean, if you're going to tell me before the season we're going to sit there and be a point behind City, I think all of us are taking that. No questions asked.
So the international break is here. Everybody's favorite time, Gally. Does this in some ways come at a good time or a bad time? Not that there's probably ever a really good time, but overall, you think, like this came in at a good time in some ways because of the recent form and things we have to figure out?
I think it comes at a good time because we started playing a lot of matches. We were playing midweek matches and playing the Europa League. I think guys are starting to get tired. I think we've seen it in some of them. I think McAllister looks tired at times. Even Gomez looked leggy the other day when he came on because he's played more minutes recently than he's had to play in a long time.
Yeah.
I think some guys like Gravenberch not getting called up by the Netherlands because they're so upset that he turned down the call up last time, and they've totally snubbed him. I think that's great. Give him 2 weeks off. Let him get in. I think guys need to get healthy. I just really wish guys like Trent weren't going off, just coming off of an injury and at camp right now in England. Like, I think Kazi said it this morning when you asked him, how does he watch Europe or how does he watch international football? And he said, I just like to watch Liverpool players come off the pitch and check off that they weren't injured, and come back healthy. Like, I think at this point, we just need to see Diaz and McAllister and Nunez go off to their South American crazy tours of travel. I hope they don't. I hope the Brazil manager's dumb enough to play Ederson every minute of every game and lets Alisson rest. Like, that's what I really hope. Bring the guys back, get them ready, slaughter Everton coming out of the break, and let's go attack it because we have some winnable fixtures coming in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, we're sending 16 players to international play. Teams all over the place, some youth. I mean, even Kwanzaa is going and stuff like that. So that's included in the 16 Bicklers. So it's not like, they get to work on stuff. Do you think it gives the management team time to kind of like figure out some stuff, or they'd be too stubborn to consider anything changing anyway?
I mean, I guess it gives them time to evaluate the season so far, right? I think a lot of these things they figure out on the pitch in training. Like they see what works, what doesn't work. I think that's how a lot of this stuff gets hashed out. So I think it does give them a break to evaluate. So from an evaluation standpoint, yeah, but like I'm like Kazi, man. I just want everybody back healthy. I don't watch a lot of these games. Like I just generally don't have a whole lot of interest, and it does more for my anxiety than anything else. So just hoping everybody gets
That's
back.
what I was going to ask you guys. I mean, we're talking about this morning in terms of like how we treat these international breaks. In some ways, it is time to kind of like take away. We were kind of talking about that, especially now. Like Gally, you were saying, like they're playing every 3 days, and it's almost like a time to kind of like kick back and like kind of like for us to catch our own breath as well with the pace. How much of it do you watch aside from, oh my God, I hope there's not an injury over there? Because at the same time, I mean, like, I was asking in the morning show as well, while in a selfish way, we do club over country and we do want them, healthy and stuff like that.
He watches all of it. Him and Megan are in the same boat where they're just total football
I know.
sluts.
I want to see if he's going to admit to it, though. Don't say
No, I don't actually.
No, here we go.
I don't
hang out with Kelly.
I do. That's exactly what I do. I hang out with my wife, Kelly. No, I pay attention. I pay attention on weekends because I'm bored because I get up so damn early and I walk the dog and I'm used to watching football and farting around the computer, and that's kind of my morning. So I may flip on, and if there's a good match on Saturday, Sunday morning, maybe, but I'm not tuning in like a Tuesday afternoon at the office on the other screen. Like I could care less who Italy's playing in some Euro qualifier or England. This is my other problem. International football used to kind of matter when qualifying was difficult for these tournaments. Everybody makes it now. Like everybody makes the World Cup. Everybody makes the European Championship. Like the next World Cup is going to have 40 something teams, like 20 more teams than the last one. I don't know. it's a little bit
still tricky though. There are still teams that get eliminated in Europe.
Well, yes, but I mean, it most likely Germany's going to make it, Italy's going to make it, Spain makes it, England makes it. They almost stack the group so that they can screw over teams like Luxembourg, Iceland, and Turkey.
Yeah,
like that's their goal.
Hey, we're
right?
making it. Damn it! Shut the hell up.
Well, I know you are. You guys are doing well. I think what the biggest thing is I watch the United States every once in a while because I know I'm going to be asked about it on this show and I need to rant.
Oh, whatever. Don't be blaming the show. You see this Bickler? He's blaming us for watching US. Nice try.
I would be, I won't lie. The match on Saturday is literally less than 20 minutes from my house. And we would go to the match having Germany come to town, be that close. We would go see it, but we're out of town going to the Bills game for our anniversary. So I could really care less, but I would rather, I think Kazi would agree, he would rather sit and watch the United States than he would watch England, which is always my favorite thing. Because when you need someone to defend a United States men's national team player in our Discord channel, the first person that usually comes to Pulisic or Tyler Adams or anyone's defense is Kazi, which always makes me laugh that the Scouser amongst us actually roots more for the American team and supports the American players than he does his own. But he told us that on Sunday morning, right? Like he let us know even this morning, he told you, like, why would he? And I thought he had the best line of the whole day. Like, you can't literally watch the England team when he was a kid. And I thought it was the best line of the whole morning show. And he'd be like, I can't watch and root for John Terry. If he's on the pitch, I root for him to break his leg. And to me, that makes the most sense. Like if anyone ever asks, like, why do the people in England have such a hard time rooting? they have such rivalries amongst those clubs. Like, how would you root for them? I mean, it'd be like
it's just a collection of players you hate.
I think
Yeah, it
that's
would be
the
like
problem.
Paul-
You know, for every guy you like, I mean, the guys you like as you watch them, you're hoping they don't get injured. The guys you don't like watching, you just like, you know, you basically feel dirty just rooting for them. That's why I like the international games. I mean, I'll be watching. Turkey actually has a really tough game playing Croatia away and stuff. And it's like a really important game because Croatia actually is in trouble, so they need the 3 points there. And I think one reason why the international break, especially like these group stages, becomes, you know, when we were talking about it this morning, I feel like it's like the NBA or, you know, Major League Baseball and stuff like that, where like the regular season, it almost feels like the first part is the regular season. Everybody's just going out there and playing games. They really don't start caring till like playoffs in the American sports. To me, in these group stages, it almost feels like the last 3-4 games are the ones where people are like, oh shit, we need 4 more points. And that's when teams get a bit more serious. Otherwise, it almost becomes a bit more glorified friendlies in some ways, especially when they're playing like a minion team that has no chance at it and stuff like that. But I mean, I know I'll be tuning in. Sounds like Gally will be tuning in just for us, though. You know, not that he wants.
No, actually, to be honest, I have not watched. I actually can say this honestly. I haven't watched the United States men's national team since they put Greg Berhalter back in charge, because I actually was enjoying watching them a little bit during the Gold Cup when they were actually playing like progressive football with the same players and scoring goals and winning games. Like, and then Berhalter came back in and they decided to play like weekend sides and go to 0-0 draws. It just doesn't make any sense to me right now with what the United States does. And I think I watch it more to complain, honestly, than I do to like get rallied up and get excited about it, because it's just so negative. And I mean, someone just made a comment, I don't even know who it was, but it's just negative football. And I think until they decide to utilize the talent that they have players playing at great clubs all over the world, and they bring them back and play like they're like young kids, like me and Paul grew up playing, like with no organization, and kick it to the corner and then cross it and let the big bloke try to head it in. Like, that's how we played football when we were kids. Like, some coach would yell, kick it to the corner, and then like you would just cross it into nowhere. It's kind of like what Stoke does. And like, it was just
English football was like that for a little bit too. Put the number 9 in the middle and just cross it in the moment you get past midfield.
But the umbrella shorts that look like a parasail, if they were a little bit too big. Yeah.
But it's going to be, I mean, the national break is never as much fun. Like I say, I have a few games to watch and get into, but still, it's only like a good break in some ways from the club soccer for a little bit to catch our breath over here. But we do have a lot going on over here in American Scouser, so definitely keep an eye on the page. There'll be a bunch of announcements coming up in the next few days over here, and our shows will go on as always. Next Monday, we'll probably take a look more at like the schedule coming up and stuff like that as well, because I think we're going into this next phase we're going into before the next international break could kind of like define how the rest of the season goes in terms of like the title race and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get more into that next week. Give us a like, a share, and all that good stuff. Definitely head on over to the page because the articles are coming fast and furious. Gally and Bickler are like organizing all that stuff here, and with our like great cast of writers that we have going over there. But definitely check out the website as well. I mean, I don't know how much Gally and Bickler are doing. They say they're doing stuff, but I don't know if that's true or not. So.
Yeah, we're busy.
Yeah, exactly. That's I don't go into the meeting room. I should probably pop my head in and see what's going on in there. But no, definitely
we shake the mouse every once in a while just to make sure it looks like we're alive.
But definitely give us a like and a share, and it goes, and then definitely invite others to join our family. We will see you guys next Monday. Have an awesome week, everybody. Take care.